The air is sharp. It bites your lungs the moment you inhale. You pull your jacket tighter, watching your breath curl into the darkness like something alive, something escaping in you. The streets are quiet, too quiet. No chatter, no laughter, no movement, just the sound of your own footsteps echoing back at you. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel something strange. Not loneliness, not fear, but comfort. A kind of peace that only exists when everything else disappears. Now ask yourself, why does silence feel safer than warmth? Why does cold feel like home? Some people chase sunlight. They crave beaches, crowds, noise, and heat. But others, they wait for winter. They feel more alive when the world slows down, when everything fades into gray. But here's the unsettling question. Why would a human mind prefer isolation over connection, stillness over stimulation, cold over warmth? This isn't just preference. This is psychology. And what it reveals about you is darker than you think. Segment 1. The hidden psychology of cold preference. At first glance, loving winter seems harmless. You might say, I just like the weather. I feel more productive. I enjoy the calm. But beneath that surface lies something deeper, something quietly shaping how you experience the world. Winter has a way of stripping everything down to its essentials. The noise fades, the chaos softens, the constant movement of life slows into something more manageable. Trees stand bare, streets grow quieter, and the social world, normally so demanding, begins to loosen its grip. There are fewer invitations, fewer expectations, fewer unspoken rules about how you should act, respond, or engage. And for certain minds, that absence isn't emptiness, it's relief. Because social environments, while energizing for some, are incredibly demanding for others. Every conversation requires interpretation, tone, body language, subtle emotional cues. Every crowded space floods the senses with overlapping sounds, movements, and signals your brain tries to process all at once. It's not just tiring, it's overwhelming. But when winter arrives, something shifts. The world itself seems to grant permission to step back, to stay in, to be quiet without explanation. What might feel like avoidance in summer suddenly feels natural, acceptable, even expected. And this is where things become fascinating. People who are drawn to winter often aren't just introverted in the traditional sense. They tend to have heightened sensitivity to stimulation. Their brains don't filter out background noises easily. They absorb more emotionally and environmentally. More input means more processing, and more processing means more fatigue. So when the external world softens, their internal world finally finds space. On a neurological level, this connects to how the brain responds to stimuli. In highly stimulating environments, heat, noise, crowds, the brain's emotional processing centers become more active, scanning for signals, reacting faster, staying alert. But in colder, quieter settings, that intensity drops. The brain isn't on high alert anymore. It rests, and without consciously realizing it, you begin to form an association. Cold equals calm. Silence equals safety. Winter equals relief. So what looks like a simple, seasonal preference may actually be your mind choosing the environment where it finally feels at peace. Segment 2. The comfort of emotional distance. Now let's go darker. Winter doesn't just quiet the outside world. It begins to quiet the inside one too. Think about it. Cold isn't just a feeling, it's a physical shift. It tightens your muscles, slows your movements, dulls your skin's sensitivity. Your body conserves energy. It withdraws just a little from the environment around it. And psychologically, that same pattern can echo inward. Because when everything slows down outside, your emotional world often follows. The intensity drops, the urgency fades, the constant push to react, engage, feel, softens into something more distant. People who prefer winter often describe this in subtle ways. Not dramatic, not alarming, just quieter, less pressure, less anxiety, less emotional chaos. At first that sounds like peace, but here's the catch. Feeling less isn't always the same as feeling better. Sometimes it's a form of protection. The mind is incredibly adaptive. When it's been exposed to repeated stress, social rejection, emotional overload, chronic tension, or even a slow, persistent sense of loneliness, it starts looking for ways to reduce the impact. Not by solving the problem, but by lowering the volume of the experience. And one of the most effective ways it does that is by creating distance. Instead of leaning into warmth, connection, vulnerability, emotional exposure, you begin to lean toward environments that ask nothing from you. And winter is perfect for that, because cold doesn't demand engagement. It doesn't expect you to open up, to respond, to perform. It doesn't challenge you with emotional unpredictability. It simply exists and allows you to exist beside it, unchallenged, uninterrupted, untouched. Over time, your brain starts associating that state with safety. There's a psychological concept known as emotional blunting. It's not complete numbness, you can still feel. Everything is slightly muted. The highs aren't as high, the lows aren't as sharp. It's like experiencing life through a softened filter. And for many people, winter becomes the perfect backdrop for this state. Because in winter, emotional distance doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels appropriate, normal, even comforting. But beneath that comfort lies something more complex. Because what feels like calm may actually be withdrawal. What feels like peace may be reduced sensitivity. And what feels like preference may be your mind quietly choosing distance over intensity, not because it wants to disconnect, but because at some point, connection felt like too much. Segment 3, the illusion of control in the quiet mind. Now here's the most fascinating part. Winter gives you something the human brain craves more than almost anything: control. In summer, the world is unpredictable. Plans change, people call, events happen. Life feels chaotic, but winter is predictable. It's repetitive, it's structured, it's quiet, and your brain loves that. Because deep inside, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and control, seeks stability. When the environment is calm, your brain feels more in charge. Less chaos equals less anxiety. That's why winter lovers often describe a strange clarity. They think better, they feel more focused, more grounded, but there's a hidden trade-off. Because too much control can limit growth. Too much quiet can reduce emotional resilience. Too much isolation can rewire your brain to avoid complexity altogether. And slowly, without noticing, you begin to prefer the absence of life over the presence of it. Not because you hate life, but because your mind has learned life is easier when it's muted. The twist in application. Now here's where it turns personal. You might not think of yourself as someone avoiding life, but let me ask you something. Have you ever preferred staying inside rather than going out, even when you had the chance? Felt oddly calm during gray, rainy, or cold days, but restless in bright, busy ones? Enjoyed silence, not just as peace, but as an escape? That's not just preference. That's your brain choosing environments that match your internal state. And sometimes, that internal state isn't calm. It's controlled, it's contained, it's protected. Because deep down, chaos feels threatening. So your mind creates a world where nothing moves too fast, nothing gets too loud, nothing gets too close. And winter becomes the perfect reflection of that world. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you only feel safe when everything is quiet, what happens when life gets loud? Because the real danger isn't loving winter. It's what that preference might be hiding. A subtle avoidance, a quiet retreat, a mind that has learned to survive by shrinking its world. And once your brain starts choosing safety over experience, it doesn't stop at seasons. It starts choosing distance over connection, silence over expression, control over growth. And eventually, you don't just prefer the cold, you become it. So the next time you feel that strange comfort in the silence, ask yourself, is it peace, or is it something you've trained your mind to believe is peace? Because what comes next is even darker. And it explains why some people don't just withdraw from the world, they disappear from it. And that is why you need to watch the next video.